Greetings, fellow mortals. Now, you might be clicking on this video because of the title and thinking that this is a critique. It's actually not. I have fond memories of the Harry Potter franchise. I read all the books when I was a kid, plus my wife and I marathon the movies every December. Like most people, I find comfort from the childlike wonder that the series provides. It's an excellent set of children's books and family movies. Picking apart Harry Potter is like picking apart Pokemon as a story. It kind of feels wrong to do as an adult. Take Quidditch, for example. J.K. Rowling just needed to make a few adjustments to the game, and it would have made perfect sense. Just change the amount of points a Seeker gets to 50, put in a time limit, let the Seeker catch the snitch multiple times per game, boom. It's a perfectly reasonable sport, but wizards are kind of unreasonable people, and like I said, it's a children's story. I feel like a jerk just pointing this all out. And I also feel rude by pointing out that 11-year-old Harry Potter should not have been a well-adjusted child. I mean, you just need to think about it a little bit. He was emotionally and physically abused from the ages of 1 to 10. He was malnourished. He didn't have any friends. He didn't even have any teachers that were kind to him, not to mention that he saw his parents be murdered when he was a toddler. There's a chance that that could lead to a lot of emotional trauma in the future. We don't know how the brain would retain and cope with that. If we're being honest, Harry Potter should have been a rude, seething, and socially inept brat. Paranoia should have rolled off him in waves. He should have hated being touched. He should have secretly been storing food because he didn't know when the next time he would eat would be. He wouldn't be able to sleep all that well. He should be manipulative, cunning, and dangerous, like a snake. Instead, J.K. Rowling went down the nature beating nurture line of reasoning. Harry Potter could be defined as the most generically good protagonist in the world. His sense of right and wrong was generally pretty perfect. He broke the rules, but that was because he wanted to help people and save lives. He was pretty talented, but lazy enough for Hermione to be the brains. There really weren't many times that he was tempted to do even morally gray things. He didn't even lust after girls. His interest in them had always been respectful. Like I said, this is because he's the hero of a children's story. It feels odd to say that he should have been a damaged child who was constantly reflecting on his abusive childhood. J.K. Rowling just wanted his home situation to be terrible so that she could build sympathy for him. She wanted to make him a perfectly moral protagonist because he was facing the perfectly evil antagonist. Voldemort was a wizard terrorist and a supremacist. He was racist, cruel, and inhuman. There's no depth to his ideology, just racism and evil. A perfect children's villain. At most, the depth that he had was that he had somewhat of a hard time in an orphanage, plus there was the trauma of knowing that he was a product of his witch mother raping his mundane father. Wait. I thought this video was about a children's story. That's a lot of rape and murder at the start. Anyway, forgetting that, Voldemort was not sympathetic. Nothing about what he ever did was redeemable. There's no way to side with him without coming off as a terrible person. And the opposite could be said for Harry Potter. I mean, how could you stand against him? He's always good. He's always respectful to people that deserve it. He's kind, polite, caring, loyal, and brave. Perhaps he's not always the brightest person in the world, but he's also a child, so it's kind of forgivable. As I said earlier, this isn't a critique. I think that Harry Potter's generic goodness is one of the many contributing factors as to why the franchise is so successful. Not the only reason, of course. There's also the feelings of childhood joy, the magic system, and J.K. Rowling's acceptance of the fan base with fan fiction and art. Yes, I know that she's gone nuts lately, but that's beside the point. They're all reasons that the series was as big of a success as possible, and there are many, many more reasons as well. It was all the perfect storm to create this story. But this video is on Harry Potter as the character. He was bland, he was generic, He was inclusive. It didn't matter your gender, race, or any other differentiating factor. Anyone could put themselves in his shoes. It wouldn't be that hard. He doesn't have much of a personality. His likes and talents are often generic. Even his interest in Quidditch comes from a desire to fly, and who can't relate to that? His most obvious talents in Defense Against the Dark Arts and teaching come from experience and necessity more than anything else. So there's nothing getting in the way of someone self-inserting themselves into his spot. Even the aspects of a difficult family life and a teacher that hates his guts helps contribute to the experience. I find it fascinating that it worked out so perfectly. The most common time I see a self-insert character like Harry Potter is in anime, mostly the harem stories, a trope that I found played out way back in my early teen years. The creators make the protagonists as generic as possible so that the audience, meaning mostly young men who don't have girlfriends, can place themselves into the protagonist's place. Most of the time, I hate this type of story, but that can be because it comes off as pandering. I don't think that Harry Potter's bland nature comes off as pandering. In fact, I consider it an act of compassion. Forget about whatever J.K. Rowling is doing now. Back when she first wrote the Harry Potter books, I think that she was trying to give children an escape. If kids were having a hard time in life, they could put themselves in the place of Harry Potter and feel happy. I think that it's a bit of kindness that we've all remembered well into adulthood. It felt like someone out there was really trying to help kids when they were feeling sad and be on their side. It's far different than a sexual fantasy for teenage boys. It's one of the reasons that almost everyone loves Harry Potter. How can you not? The sense of magic, joy, and compassion in the series bleeds through. It doesn't matter if some things don't make sense. Everything about the series shatters the barriers to entry. Suspension of disbelief for Harry Potter is so wide while experiencing it because it is special, because the franchise actively wants you to feel better. Oddly enough, it's not a trope that's been copied to a wide degree. The second most successful series compared to Harry Potter with a rather bland protagonist, in my opinion, is Percy Jackson. But even then, Percy has more of a defined personality compared to Harry. Then there's the problem that no one really wants to be a demigod in Percy Jackson's world. Who wants to be Percy Jackson where he's surrounded by angry gods and monsters trying to kill him at all times? Now, you could argue that you don't exactly want to be Harry Potter. I doubt any of us want to fight the evil Dark Lord, but we'd all like to be a witch or a wizard in that world. I can't say that for Percy Jackson's world. I definitely do not want to be a demigod. And all this isn't to insult Percy Jackson, by the way. It's just to point out the differences. God knows that I like watching A Dangerous World, but if you had to pick a magical world to live in, I think that most people would probably choose the wizarding world. So what should we take out of all this? Truth be told, I think that the most that we can get out of this is understanding Harry Potter as a phenomenon. I don't think that it can be replicated to the same degree. Perhaps there could be other successful stories with bland protagonists, but they'll never capture the same magic as Harry Potter. Pun very much intended, by the way. Feel free to boo me, throw the Rotten Tomatoes at me. I would deserve it in this case. There is one other thing that you can take from this though. If a series protagonist doesn't have much of a personality, special skills, or unique traits, that's because the writers are trying to get you to insert yourself into that position. They want you to feel like the hero and the chosen one. It's just another storytelling device, and it's good to be aware of it. And I do hope that it gives you more appreciation for Harry Potter as a series. It's as unique of a tale as possible. I think that it found perfection in imperfection, and I think a lot of writers can learn from that, from Harry Potter as a character, and from J.K. Rowling as a writer. But what do you think? Am I right about Harry Potter? Do you think that he's a unique protagonist? Do you have your own favorite bland protagonist? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your perspectives. And thank you so much for watching. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It would really help me out. Also, please remember that I will be self-publishing my novel, Dance, A Frozen Death, at the start of 2023. I hope that you will check it out. I appreciate you. Do not despair.